The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Way to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, here we go. And I want you to bear with us because we are probably not going to be the bearer of great tidings on the program as we get to the holiday season. But we're going to tell you what is actually going on with Tennessee's football program as it pertains to Nico Iamaleava and also Tennessee's chances of making the college football playoff. You would have thought that surely, right? Surely Tennessee would have a better chance of making the college football playoff after beating Mississippi State on Saturday. But that's not necessarily the case. It's a Monday, so the Warren Report, Jacob Warren will join us, former Tennessee Vol, this day in Tennessee sports history, Tennessee hoops as well. Did they return to form or not? Also, Florida basketball head coach Todd Golden with a sexual harassment lawsuit, Auburn with a fight on a plane that had to be grounded, and maybe the craziest weekend in the history of SEC basketball. Also, Week 11 SEC power rankings. If Tennessee's not number one, then Caleb and I are going to have a fight. I mean, a real fisticuffs going at it because Tennessee should be number one. That's where I am. I'm going to take away any of the drama out of that. If they're not, I'm mad. And I'm not just saying that to endear myself to the fans out there. That I would like for you to hit like and subscribe. Also, our Week 11 college football recap as some teams finally played with fire and got burned. Hi, Amy. All right, here we go. Hit the like and subscribe button. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Caleb, Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm good. I want to go ahead and set up our poll question if we can, and that is pretty simple. Does Tennessee have to have Nico Iamaleava to beat Georgia this weekend? Now, I want to be clear. I think they will, but I'm going to give you some update on his injury status. If you click that thumbs up button and then give me your thoughts on if Nico couldn't go for some reason, would Gaston Moore be able to pull off what would be an incredible upset? It's a double-digit spread right now at 10 points. I don't know if they would adjust it because they're not going to have definitive news, perhaps, on if Gaston Moore were to play. Again, we don't think that's going to be the case. But would it move 3 points? Potentially. I don't know. But it's stuck right about 10 now, and it was going to be 7.5 last week. So maybe it's already moved because of the Nico injury. Here we are. Today's tough question. How healthy is Nico? And it's represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Caleb. We played a little bit of doctor, which I hate to do because it was in the moment. And I said that it looked to me to be a shoulder injury, in particular, Nico Iamaleava's left shoulder when he went down against Mississippi State. He fell on that shoulder before. The shoulder is an issue. However, I have been led to believe, and Jimmy Himes reported on Sunday Sports Sound Off, that Nico Iamaleava could well have suffered a concussion. I'm not reporting that as 100% fact. If I could have run it down yesterday when I worked the phones all day, I would tell you that right now. But I do believe, I'm not reporting, but I believe that a concussion is part of the equation in this. Now, a couple things to unpack here. If it's a sore left shoulder and not a broken collarbone and not dislocated and not a separated collarbone, but just sore, then he's going to play on Saturday, right, Caleb?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. When you bring in the word concussion, and we're not as sensitive to that as we were when the Will Smith movie came out, concussion, but we're still pretty sensitive to that. And it's something that could linger throughout the week. So, Caleb, that is somewhat disconcerting, more so than just a shoulder injury. I believe we can agree on that, correct?
Correct.
So, a concussion could be anywhere from he could be cleared on Tuesday to a concussion could be, he could be out 3 or 4 weeks if he shows signs of that. I do want to emphasize again, we're not, in my opinion, as overly sensitive as we were for a time when the whole Will Smith movie came out. Listen, we knew there were concussions. The lion's share of players did have a good life after football, but certainly concussions were going to be an issue. And let me go ahead and tell you, I'm going to give them a soapbox for a second. They can do all the helmet stuff they want. That doesn't, the concussion, the new helmets, they protect the skull. They don't protect the head because it's the ricochet effect. So with Nico Iamaleava, if there is a concussion lingering, then I don't 100% believe what Josh Heupel has said and may even say in his press conference today that everything's fine. It's just precautionary. I think he's hoping that would be the case. I think it was wise to pull him out of the game for the second half against Mississippi State. But we have seen before that Josh Heupel has been overly optimistic in the case of Lance Hurd making the Arkansas game. Cooper Mays last year playing in the Florida game. He's been overly optimistic, perhaps gamesmanship, to say this guy's going to play. So, Caleb, while I am, and I want to be real clear to everybody on the message board, I 80% think he's going to play. Okay, 80%, maybe even 90. I don't think it's cut and dry until we get to midweek and we learn some more news. So, Caleb, I just want you to comment on that, and then I want to get into the discussion. Can Tennessee possibly beat Georgia with a Gaston Moore if that were the case? Don't overreact on the message board, okay? But if that were the case, I don't think it's the end of the world because of the way Tennessee's built. But first, Caleb, your thoughts on concussion. When you and I talked late last night setting up the show in our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, you were kind of like, oh, that changes things, doesn't it?
Well, again, concussions are, you're right. It's my understanding with concussions and the way they have been treated for health purposes, even in the NFL level, it's more you just have to be out for that game. But don't concussions go away within a couple of days?
Yes.
Like, I'm not like they're like you're back to normal after a couple of days, aren't you?
Yes. So I mean, there is a possibility it could uncover something else and it could be an ongoing issue and he could keep showing signs. I just want to say that I don't think it's lock, stock, and barrel. No question. The discussion is over. He plays Saturday against Kentucky. I 80% believe he'll play. Georgia. I 80% believe he'll play. Don't get me wrong. But I think there are more developments and more tests that have to go on. I do not think the shoulder, in any sense of what I've heard, would keep him out of Saturday's game against Georgia. But the concussion also leads us to this, and that is, Caleb, you can't necessarily play through a concussion like Dylan Samson played through a sore ankle that probably numbed up, because if you've ever sprained your ankle, they go numb pretty quick. I know firsthand. But you can play through a lot of injuries. The training staff might tell you you're not allowed to play through a concussion. So your thoughts on that, Caleb? 30 seconds from Banks and Jones. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. Banks. And Adam points out a concussion is a bruised brain. It has to heal like a bruise, and it can get very serious when re-injured. Swing Sculptor said, is the line 9 because Nico is hurt? Well, I will tell you, I think that yes, that's why the line is at 9 or 10, because I was told it would be at 7 or 7.5 by our gambling expert, pardon me, Tyler Wyatt, last week before we knew of the Nico injury. So now there are some people that have taken this one step further and on social media said brain bleed. I don't have any reason to believe that's the case. Nobody I talked to all day Sunday led me to believe any sort of brain bleed. I mean, for goodness sake, I feel like we go over the top. And I don't want to go over the top, Caleb, and I hope I'm not. I'm just telling you what I have been told, that there is real concern about a concussion. Now, they wouldn't have necessarily known the full results of that during or after the game. So it leads me to two questions. Number one, could Tennessee beat Georgia with Gaston Moore?
What's the other question?
Well, I'll get to that, but
okay. Well, okay. So I wanted to address the injury again a little bit, and then I'll get to that. But yes, with the concussion, with Nico, concussions, you're right. You don't want to risk re-injuring him. But the difference between that and, like you said, playing on a sprained ankle, there's a stress fracture that could come involved with like too many reps. I don't think there's a stress fracture with concussions. I don't think there's the equivalent of that. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys can tell me. But I feel like if you have a concussion and your brain and you fully heal, I don't feel like you've done some sort of damage to your brain that it increases the risk of another concussion down the road. If you wait till you're fully healed.
I think I could not to make this sound like a pun, gray matter, but I think that's a little bit of a gray area. I think Tua Tagovailoa, for instance, is more likely to have a concussion than the average dude. Because
I don't think Tua, but not because he's had previous concussions. I just think because of the way his body's built. I don't think it's because of his concussions in the past. I think it's because of just the way. Put it this way, I mean, a hangover is actually a mild concussion. We've all been hungover pretty badly. I've been hungover a few times. You get hungover one time, you're not more light. That doesn't make you more likely to get hungover the next time you drink. You're just somebody who may get hungover a lot.
Okay. I think maybe that's oversimplifying a little bit. What I would say to this is if you come back too quickly, you're more likely to get concussed. And I think that I've always been led to believe that the more concussions you have, the more likely you are to have one. But I've only had a couple, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, we'll have to kind of see how that goes. Now, as far as this week, Gaston Moore versus Nico versus Georgia, I set up the poll question in a very funny way, Dave, which is, do Vols have to have Nico Iamaleava to beat Georgia on Saturday? And the answer, yes. No, Gaston Moore is better than Carson Beck. Given the way Carson Beck has played recently, what do you think? Is it possible to say that not that Gaston Moore is good, but that Carson Beck is really, really bad?
Yeah, I said before the season, I got made fun of on a TV show that I do in Knoxville. I said by the time that Tennessee and Georgia play, Nico will be the better of the two quarterbacks. And I was laughed off the stage, made fun of the following week when Nico had one of his off games. I guess it was against either Oklahoma or Arkansas. People brought it up, wanted to remind me, you said that he's going to be better than Carson Beck. No, I didn't say he was going to be better than Carson Beck immediately, but I said by the time they played. And I'll stand by that. 100% healthy Carson Beck is better right now than Nico is better right now than Carson Beck.
But what about Gaston Moore versus Carson Beck?
So the Gaston Moore question is interesting. If this were 2022, you might as well not even go down to Athens. Because that team had to have elite quarterback play in order to win, correct?
Correct.
This team is built different. Elite defense, can run the football. Absolutely no question in my mind that Tennessee could win with Gaston Moore if they have a week to prepare him. I think the scary thing for Tennessee is if they're unsure about Nico, how do you handle first team reps? Because I don't think that you can straddle the fence, so to speak, Caleb. I think you've got to go all in. Would you agree with that? You've either got to say on a Monday, I'm getting Gaston Moore ready, or Nico's fine. Let's just roll.
Well, you at the very least have to decide that on a Monday.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to tell anybody. And Dave, let's be honest, you and I both know there's a 100% chance that Josh Heupel does not tell us anything if he's going with Gaston Moore this week.
Yes.
We're not going to know that until the day of. Something's going to come out that, Gaston Moore is going to start against Georgia, and then we didn't know anything about it. That's how Josh Heupel's going to play that. I will say that I'm kind of with you, and it's crazy to think about, but we talked about this last week, Dave. If you guys have looked at the way Georgia's played recently, I think Tennessee could beat Georgia playing the way they did against Miami in 2003, where it's play very careful football and just wait for Georgia to implode and make mistakes because they keep making mistakes.
Yeah. Carson Beck is not a leader. He's not a guy that people have rallied around. I knew that in September. I've made two great calls since we've been doing this show together, Caleb. One, that Michigan in September was the best team in the nation last year. Remember I said that?
You did, and you said it. You just said based on eye test, they just look head and shoulders.
And I will go ahead and tell you that I don't think Carson Beck has a very good arm. I think now he's turning the ball over. I think Tennessee, it would be close to a wash if Gaston Moore was down there. And that sounds insane, but it would be close to a wash because I think they would put Gaston Moore in a position not to turn the ball over. And that would be the key. His most important stat would just don't turn it over. Let the defense set up a score. Let the running game control the clock. Shorten the game. That's all well and good. Take the crowd out of the game by shortening the game. Now, I think Nico's going to play, so I think Tennessee's fine in that regard. I want to be real clear on that. And I think Nico will play, and they'll have an advantage at the quarterback position. Now, the other question that's going to make some of you mad, but that's what we do here, okay? We're not the kiss-ups that you can find at other places. And we can make this a poll question. Do you trust Josh Heupel when he says everything's fine with Nico Iamaleava? Because I got to be honest with you. I understand the gamesmanship, and I don't want to call it lying, but I do not trust him when he says that everything's fine right after the game before he's undergone more testing with Nico. Because surely if they thought it was a concussion, if they thought it was a shoulder, either or, there's an MRI involved or a brain scan or something, okay? So I don't believe right after the game, he knew that everything was going to be fine for Saturday. Maybe he knew that it was precautionary reasons and he could have run out there and play. But based off what we saw Cooper and Lance Hurd go through, I do not believe Josh Heupel at all. And I'm not trying to attack his morality or I'm not trying to attack his character. But Caleb, it's partly gamesmanship. We have seen it before. So how much do you trust Josh Heupel when it comes to saying guy X, I don't care who it is going to play?
Yeah, no, I don't trust him at all on this. I mean, Josh Heupel is not going to tell us the truth, and he wouldn't want to tell anybody the truth because I'm not the biggest fan of gamesmanship. I think it's overrated, but it is kind of a factor when it comes to the quarterback. Is that fair to say?
One, if you're ever going to lie, this one would be a big one because you would want Georgia getting ready for Nico the whole week. And you would want to roll Gaston Moore out there, kind of like they did with James Banks. I can't remember the year. But
they didn't tell anybody that Casey wasn't starting until that Saturday.
I had no idea. I was like, look, James Banks is out there running around like a crazy man. I did not know that. So that's what you would want. And if there's ever the right time to lie, and I'm a Christian person, I believe in not lying. I actually detest lying as much as any sin out there. But if there was ever a time to lie, this is the time to lie, right?
Yeah. There is absolutely no way you could. There's no way you should tell the truth. And I would tell Josh. I mean, honestly, as a media member, I could not get upset with Josh Heupel for not telling the truth. You don't want it out there.
This is right.
You know, which is why, again, this is what's so silly and stupid about the injury report requirements. Of course, he's going to put Nico Iamaleava as questionable on Wednesday. He could probably even put him as probable. What are they going to do? What's the SEC going to do? Say, oh, did you lie? Like, well, we thought he could go on Wednesday, and then, Saturday came, and he just didn't heal the way we thought. Like, this is, like, why do they do this, Dave? You can easily lie on these injury reports.
Yeah. Derek says when he walked off after that run, he had his head hung low. It didn't look like a shoulder sag, man. It's a concussion. Yeah. I'm afraid.
And this is a great...
Yeah, I'm afraid that's the case. And if that's the case, it opens up a whole nother can of worms than a bruised shoulder.
And this is a great point by Adam. The general himself, do we think he would have disclosed any injury information voluntarily? Robert Neal as a military guy.
No, he probably would have just used artillery against the Bulldogs. He would have had some M60s up on the hill in that area that they don't have closed off and just use that.
He did actually design. He's the first one to actually design using the press box to call plays, because he actually designed the phone to the press box because he wanted he wanted somebody to see the field from the aerial level, which, by the way, biggest red flag to me always with Randy Sanders and John Chavis was that they coach from the sidelines. How are you going to be a good coordinator when you're not even seeing the whole field?
Chavis was in the press box.
He not later in his career. Later in his career, he would be on the sidelines.
Okay, yeah, I think that's difficult to do. I know you like to look guys in the eyes and see if they're tough and all that stuff, but that's stupid. All right. I mean, it just is. Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, and Commercial Bank is a member FDIC. Life Made Better, CBTN.com. And I'm mad to do this. I'm a little mad at Caleb because Tennessee beat Mississippi State. Georgia loses to Ole Miss. So on the surface, you say to yourself, Tennessee at 10-2 is getting in. They're getting in, no question about it, because they're 10-2, and Georgia has another loss. Everybody's fallible. But my, oh my, Caleb and I talked late Saturday night, so I wrote a straight story about where Tennessee stood, and he did the research. And guys, you're not going to believe this. Tennessee's college football playoff chances actually dropped. Caleb explained why. Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank.
All right, how do you win and your college football playoff chances drop?
Because of what teams around you do. Tennessee, per the Athletics projection models, was a 61% chance to make the college football playoff going into last Saturday. That number has dropped to 39%. Yeah, 39%.
And this is pretty much across the board. This is by The Athletic. This is by ESPN. This is not somebody that's trying to get some clicks, correct?
Correct. Because here's why. Ole Miss just entered the conversation for competition to get to the college football playoff.
Right.
I mean, it would have been worse, by the way, if LSU had beaten Alabama. Then Tennessee actually probably would have been in the 20s. But let's talk about what's going on here. Tennessee is a projected underdog to Georgia this week. They would have been with or without Nico. Okay, so these projections, by the way, I don't even know if they take Nico's injury into account, but let's just say for the sake of this, they don't. Tennessee would be under.
I wouldn't think they would. Go ahead.
Right, I wouldn't either. Tennessee's underdogs at Georgia this week, and guys, they were going to be underdogs at Georgia even with Nico. I don't care what Ole Miss did to Georgia last week. But because Ole Miss did what Ole Miss did to Georgia last week, if chalk happened and Tennessee lost to Georgia, David, 10-2 Tennessee team is going to be behind a 10-2 Georgia team, a 10-2 Ole Miss team, and a 10-2 and a 10-1 Texas team, 11-1 Texas team, that's what they're favored to go. And when you take that into account, you all of a sudden say, wow, at best, if they lose to Georgia this weekend, at best, they'll finish fourth. That's to say nothing of the fact that the committee may value Alabama's strength of schedule over Tennessee's head-to-head advantage over them if both teams finish 10-2. That might happen.
Okay, so chaos is how many teams at 10-2 from the SEC? 6?
We are looking right now, I believe, at 6 teams that could go 10-2. Right now, there are, just to bring it up, there are 7 teams right now that have just 2 losses or fewer. And most importantly, Tennessee and Georgia play this weekend. If Georgia beats Tennessee, there would still be 7 teams with 2 losses or fewer. Here's where the chaos happens, Dave. If Texas A&M could beat Texas, Georgia could beat Tennessee, everybody else go chalk. 7 teams in the SEC finish 10-2. 7. And Tennessee would have a hard sell to be 4th or better in that scenario, particularly if Texas A&M beats Texas. And that's it, because then Tennessee's in really big trouble. I haven't even gotten to the fact that Indiana beating Michigan over the weekend, we now are looking at 4 clear-cut college football playoff teams from the Big Ten. Penn State's going, Ohio State's going, Oregon's going. None of those teams are going to finish with fewer than 1 loss, or with more than 1 loss. And now, I'm sorry, David, Indiana's not going to finish with more than 1 loss because their only credible game left is Ohio State. Now, Tennessee's best hope in that scenario would be that maybe a 10-2 Tennessee gets in over an 11-1 Indiana, because let's be honest, this I don't know if you guys know this. There's a very good chance Indiana goes 11-1 without beating 1 team with the winning record all year. It's the worst schedule in the history.
Yeah, but here's what scares me about that is that you have the Big Ten and SEC, I believe, working together now. So I think that Greg Sankey would say, all right, they're 1 win better. You can have your Indiana, and I'll have a chip in my pocket for sometime down the future. That's what scares me. I would feel better about it if the SEC and Big Ten still hated each other like they did a couple of years ago.
That might be true, particularly, and I think one of the ways they would want that, they probably want an equal number of teams from each conference if they can get it. They want 3 to 4 from each conference. You're right. Now, lucky for Tennessee is the other smaller conferences, and I'm going to talk about this on our Week 11 recap. They've collapsed in terms of their chances of multiple teams getting in. The Miami upset, the Pitt upset, the Iowa State upset. Like the Big 12 and ACC are each only getting 1 team in, probably. But for right now, in the SEC, if all 7 teams go chalk and finish 10-2, let's just say that happens, Dave, hypothetically. Let's play this scenario out real quick. Texas A&M 7-2. Say they went out and beat Texas and go 10-2, and Texas finishes 10-2. You do realize there's a very good chance both of those teams finish ahead of a 10-2 Tennessee team in the college football playoff.
I think that doesn't that depend largely on how they were to lose to Georgia. If this is a close game, what if this? Let me throw a couple scenarios. So there's 6 10-2 teams. All right, that's
there
my
could be
baseline.
7. There could be 7.
Okay, but let's just say 6 because I think that's more likely. Fair. Okay. Gaston Moore goes to Athens. Tennessee loses 24-23. It's a close game. Does Tennessee get one of the guaranteed 4, maybe 5 spots?
I think at that point they'll get the nod. Again, they'll probably get it over Alabama at that point. Look, I know you think head-to-head should just automatically go to Tennessee, but they're not going to do that if Tennessee's schedule strength and Alabama's schedule strength, or if there's too much of a gap. I'll just give you guys a hot take real quick. Dave, do you remember the 2000 national title game, the BCS, that was so controversial because Florida State got in over Miami, even though Miami beat Florida State?
Yes.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I've looked at those 2 schedules. I don't care that Miami beat Florida State. Florida State deserved to get in. Miami played the Big East that year. It was one of the worst schedules in the history of scheduling. And I think Florida State had every right to get in, even though both teams were 11-1. I think head-to-head should be a big factor, but it shouldn't automatically outweigh if there's a gigantic gap in schedule strength. And there could be with Tennessee and Alabama.
I'm getting ready to give a hot take, which I don't really believe in that. But I really believe this. And Caleb, I've told you when it comes to gambling, I have these feelings about 4 or 5 times a year at the most. And they're almost always right. And I felt it strong yesterday talking to you on the phone. You're like, whoa. And I was talking to somebody else who's a friend of the program. And I'm like, whoa. And it's brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Tennessee's going to beat Georgia, and it's not going to matter. Tennessee's a better football team than Georgia.
Yeah,
Tennessee is going to beat Georgia.
Yeah, but you say that, but there's the whole road issue with Josh Heupel, and it's a night game in Athens.
I understand.
And I mean, so I get what you're saying, but and that's the thing. If Tennessee beats Georgia, all this is moot. If Tennessee beats Georgia, all this is moot. They're going to Atlanta probably too. By the way, another big reason we have to point this out, that it's down to 39%, is that if Tennessee does fall to 10-2 and we have this cluster of SEC teams, that's still assuming they beat Vanderbilt at the end of the year, which isn't just like a throwaway fall out of bed win.
No,
so,
it's not. It's not anymore.
Yeah, that lowers the possibilities too. So I'm just saying that there's a very good chance.
You say it's a moot point. They say mute point out in Farragut, where Jacob Warren is from. The Warren Report coming up. He's looking at me in the window like, you jackass. All right, stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year.
Suddenly there's Medicare Misty. Let's pull her down for a second. As, by the way, our software has undergone a complete retransition, which is always
guys
a sophomore when it's working perfectly well. You just need to redo the whole thing. Makes no sense, but we'll work through that. Jacob up next, and hopefully some comments from Medicare Misty. Now, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community
Medicare
since
Misty.
1993. You're getting a lot of information, unlike when you were working.
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Unlike when you were working, I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year.
Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2024 Ford Maverick XLT all-wheel drive, $31,990. 23 Ford Expedition 4x4 Limited, $66,590. 2023 Ford F-150 XLT Super Crew 4x4, $47,995. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Great job on the new software, Caleb. That was nice and smooth. I don't know why they changed this. We've been dreading November the 11th. They announced it like a month ago. Jacob Warren, the Warren Report, joins us now. We're just lucky to have you on the screen, Jacob. How are you, sir?
Comment said, just play all of them.
All at once.
All at once.
Yeah, it's Medicare Double D Fire Protection brought to you by Commercial Bank. All right, Jacob, let's get off and rolling. The Warren Report brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. They're in Sevierville, also South Knoxville, and they've got the patches. Caleb, if we can drop that in the chat. They've got the patches online, and Jacob, it works.
It does. Yeah. Check out the link online and then in the chat there. Maybe try out a patch or go see them in person. Maybe even they got great staff and always willing to take care and give you what you need. You know what I mean? They listen and they, are just there to help. So just happy to be able to be working with them. So go check out the link and see if it's something that works for you. Okay.
So what we think that Nico Iamaleava is going to be healthy and ready to go against Georgia. So I want to work under that assumption. Things can happen during the week.
Sure.
Josh Heupel can be overly optimistic, but let's work on that assumption.
Sure.
On that assumption that he's ready to go, how close is this offense to being like 2022 level? Can it even get to that point? Does it need to get to that point? Just what did you see offensively before Nico was out for the second half?
Yeah, I think overall, it's tough to compare the two, right? And we've had this conversation again on the show in the past of just these teams are very different and they're built a little bit different just in the way that, I think this team relies a lot more on its defense versus the team I was on in 2022 relied much more on its offense, right? There was great defensive players and we had a good defense and all this other stuff, but, we went out there and said, we're going to score 45, 50 a game. Doesn't matter who you are. You know what I'm saying? You did it against Alabama. You do it against all these other teams that are really, really good teams. Now, this team says, we're just going to keep you from being able to score more than 20. And if we score 3 touchdowns, then game over, right? Like seems to be maybe not what they're going for, but it seems to be, what's happening, right? And if it works, it works. That's great. So I think, you say, can this offense be as good as that 2022 offense? I think it's just as good, but just in a different regard, right? I think they're different. They're better at different things and they're finding different things that are working for them. You just can't argue with the run game. You can't argue with Dylan Samson 150 yards again. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just a lot of things that, again, like I'm saying, we had in 2022, but this one's a little bit different. And so, I to answer your question, I do think that this team is good enough to beat anybody, truly. You know what I'm saying? It just is a matter of, do you get that team that goes scoreless in the first half? Because I don't necessarily think you can do that against these really, really top tier teams, right? It happened against Alabama and you end up squeaking out with one. But, as you get to the later stretch of the season, like Caleb even mentioned earlier, and I hate to say it, Vandy's no slouch anymore. And so you can't really count them out. And you have a pretty good Georgia team. And I'm not going to – hopefully you won't ask me any handcuffing questions about what I think about this Georgia team. I might have just teed you up there. But, no, I think that we're in a good spot. And I think that, we can see a continue of the flourishment of our offense. And hopefully it continues to involve Dylan Samson a whole lot because, man, he's really good.
So let it be known that Jacob just said Tennessee won't get away with not scoring in the first half against the really good teams, but they got away with it against Alabama. So he doesn't think Alabama's a good team. Jacob said it, not me. Yep. Jacob thinks Alabama's highly mediocre. You think they're basically UTEP, right, Jacob?
You're good at your job, Caleb. I'll say that. you're good at your job.
What did you? I know that you don't pay attention to the number because you're not a gambling degenerate like Caleb. But
Jacob, wait, for the record, I had an 11-leg parlay in the NFL yesterday. I hit 9 of the 11 legs. The only one I missed on was Saquon Barkley not scoring a touchdown and Garrett Wilson not going over 50 yards receiving because Aaron Rodgers decided he can't play anymore. I'm still mad about that.
So you know how much you won? Goose. All right, way to go with the parlay, the old sucker's bet.
I would have won $1,500.
It was so good until it wasn't,
It's so good.
It's a lock, man.
But Jacob, to me, I mean, this is the number 4 or 5 team in the nation, depending on which rankings you want to go. And then the college football playoff will have their rankings. To be a double-digit favorite to anybody, I believe is insulting. And I know you guys probably didn't pay close attention to the line, but this is something I would use as a motivating factor. I do know that Philip Fulmer would do this occasionally, and this is way before your time, but did it in 2001. That was the 9-11 game when Tennessee played at Florida late in the year, and Tennessee was like a 14.5 point favorite and won.
You mean underdog? No, they were an 18 point. They were an 18 point underdog.
Yeah, and
it
won.
was 2 top 5 teams.
So, I mean, can that be motivation, or is that just something players don't think about?
Yeah, I think you hear it, but it's the same thing you talk about, like we're talking about Saturday mornings, right? When you're watching College Game Day or whatever. I think that honestly was the point of the week when I realized kind of how everybody felt about our game, right? I didn't look at media, I didn't look at anything, but on Saturdays I sat down, and again, most of the time we had night games, so I would sit down and I'd start watching College Game Day. I'd start watching the other games and stuff, and you go through and you watch Pat and you watch Lee and you watch Kurt, you watch all these guys choose the other team. You're like, hold on a second, no, that's not what we're doing. Like, that's not how it's fun. That's not how it's going to go. All this other stuff. So, to me, honestly, I got more fire and more, I guess motivation just from seeing people talk about the game. And that was something that I avoided all week. And so that was my dose of it on Saturday mornings when we watch Game Day. But I can't speak for everybody, you know what I'm saying? But that's kind of my experience on the only information I would take in would be College Game Day or watching the TV, watching other games during the week. So.
Jacob, guess where I used to call Lee Corso to be on the show that I was producing at the time, Sports Talk with John Wilkerson and Jimmy Himes. You want to guess?
I don't have a guess.
Okay, it was a landline, and it was at a pencil factory. He worked at a pencil factory, literally, and just did College Game Day on the weekends for fun. So I'd call the number 2 pencil factory, and I'd say, could I speak to Lee? Yeah, speak to Lee Corso? And he'd go, hey, how's it going? That's when those guys are easy to get.
Jake, now that you say, I got an honest question, because Dave and I come from a different time period where, before Pat McAfee, it was like Lee Corso was just sharp as a tack, and just so quick-witted.
He's not now?
No, because of his age and he speaks a little more slowly. I still love him. His mind is still all there. Don't get me wrong. But Jacob, I got to ask you this question. Who's more triggering and frustrating when they pick against you, Lee Corso or Pat McAfee? Who just really grates you more?
Well, you see, the problem with Pat is that he's always so over the top, right? Anytime he's always making a call, right? It's never just, guys, I think they got a really good run game. I'm taking Tennessee. It's never that. It's always, he always makes fun of somebody, right? Starts singing one team's chant or their fight song, and then, changes it up or keeps it, whatever. So he's all about just the rouse of the fans and the crowd, which is amazing. I think it's amazing for College Game Day. I think truly he has done so much for that program and just for everything that they do. But dude, something about Lee calling against you is just like, what are you talking? Like, come on, dude. Like, what are you looking at? And then he puts the helmet on, and you're like, God, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
About it. That little wave I did earlier too. It's just, I don't know. You hate to see that whenever he's not rooting for you.
Did you see? By the way, over the weekend, I don't want to be too graphic here, even though we probably can because we don't have FCC regulations. That somehow Pat McAfee got LSU fans to chant that Alabama likes providing a service to other.
Correct.
Yeah. Did you see? That.
I saw it. Have you ever been to LSU? Have you been to their stadium?
Oh yeah. I've covered several games there. It's
pretty wild. To make them do it on live television is.
I know. Did you see what it was, Caleb?
I've read about it.
It was a little strong.
Jacob, funny enough, when you guys played at LSU, Dave and I both said the week before, we said, because we know the fans too, and a lot LSU and Florida are the two places where they are very lethargic if it's a noon game because they're just hungover. And we both said they should have moved the line like 7 points in y'all's favor when that kickoff was.
Change the game time. If they wanted to win that game, you should have played it at night because, well, first of all, we were all super excited to go play there at night. We wanted to play at night because we knew that was the environment you'd get. But yeah, dude, you pull up and it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's just kind of like, all right. And we went out there, and my boy Will Brooks, of course, we've had this discussion. Will Brooks put the game away like literally first kickoff, and we were like, yeah, cool, it's wraps, because their stadium wasn't into it, they weren't into it. It was a whole thing.
Didn't they throw eggs at y'all's bus?
Dude, that's happened like so much. People are just throwing stuff. I can't even remember, but that sounds right. And trust me, who cares? Like, literally, who cares? I have my headphones on. People are like, oh, they're doing this. I'm like, whatever, dude.
I want to I want to get to Timothy McGee with the super chat real quick because thank you, Timothy, for the $10. But I
Goes
want
to Quincy Calhoun's college fund as long as Caleb doesn't gamble it away. Quincy's now what, 5 months old?
Yeah, he is 5 months.
Hopefully the next parlay hits.
Yes, exactly.
$10 will go a long way on DraftKings, man.
Yeah,
$10 will go a long way.
All you got, you know what? All you got to do is hit one, Jacob. All you got to do is hit one. You hit one, except for all your losses. And
You don't have to explain to me, brother. I get it.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is actually a really good question too. So he's asking about Heupel's offensive scheme not being creative in the run. I want to answer it, but I want to give your thoughts. My understanding is the run game in y'all's scenario is I'm sorry, I pulled it back up again. 1 second. The run game in y'all's scenario is much more vertical, right? There's not a lot of stretch plays. It's much more vertical to try to bring people in to have those big shots. Isn't that the point of the run for Josh Heupel's offense?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's let me see. Let me think. I'm really trying to think back to all of our different options and everything like that. We're very big on vertical displacement from an offensive line. So if our guys can take their steps and can get fit, right, and we can go that way, that means our little guy back there can kind of just ride this wave and then find a seam and then hit it, right? Like that's kind of how a lot of the run game is built. Obviously there's man runs and there's zone runs, there's gap runs. There's a bunch of different things that a lot of people, I wouldn't say, and I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence here, a lot of people wouldn't understand the difference between a lot of them. And a lot of people wouldn't be able to just look at a structure or look at, where the ball hit or how the offensive line blocked it and be able to tell you, okay, that's one back power, that's counter, that's gap, that's punch. Like there's a lot of different nuances to the run game and stuff that a lot of people, I guess, maybe don't realize. And I truly think that I felt like I've seen a lot of different things that I never did, right? Things that I'm looking at, and whether they're, super diverse within themselves, I don't know, but I do see a lot of things that I did not run, if that makes sense, right? I'm watching our two tight ends and the different things they're able to do with both of those guys and inserts and on the edges, and you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of really cool misdirection stuff that they're doing that I literally have conversations with our coaches about and our younger guys. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. It's a sweet run. Like that was really cool. And they're like, yeah, we put that in last week. It's like, they kind of just came up with it and just thought, hey, we might as well do this. And so, me personally, from what I've seen, I see a lot of nuance. I see a lot of new different little tweaks and things like that. But I also can understand how you would be like, why is it just like, okay, run for 2 yards, let's run the same thing, just split cut, like, and just get it over with. And I think that there is some merit in that. It was a Timothy, I think, that asked. Yeah, Timothy, I think you do have a pretty good point. But for me personally, looking at it, I think it is pretty cool. I think some of the stuff they do is pretty creative, but I also can acknowledge the fact that there are some things that it seems like it just gets a little bit, I don't know if redundant's the right word, but there could be some more creativity, I guess. There's room for that, yeah.
I even saw them pull Cooper at one point, which is pretty difficult for a center. Portions of the program, and we certainly appreciate Jacob Warren's visit. Portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Jacob, what are your thoughts on a running back knowing the position, knowing how to read his blocks? Because I would bet you if you put Peyton Lewis and Dylan Samson through an NFL pro day, that Peyton Lewis right now would probably be the more impressive just out of that pro day.
Sure.
But there's something to be said for patience, setting up your blocks, putting a foot in the ground and going. And to me, Dylan Samson is like an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10 in that regard. Not to knock Peyton Lewis. I think that takes some time. But for those that wonder why Cam Seldon and Peyton Lewis hasn't played, that's kind of been my answer. Now Peyton has. But am I on to something there? Do you think that's fair?
You are. Yeah, I think you I'm trying to think back. You think of people like, Chris Johnson, right? Darren Sproles, just any back in the league, right? That's not a huge guy. Like Peyton is a large man, right? Big arms, big chest, big muscles, big legs, all that sort of stuff. And Dylan's the same way. He's just not quite as tall and not quite as big, whatever. So physically impressive, like, yeah, of course you're going to have these guys that are just like tanks that can run fast, that are strong, that are, can push the pile, all this other stuff. But, and I think Dylan, first of all, can do that. But second of all, like you watch, it was kind of the wide zone off the left, the one he scored on, right? It was the first one he came back after he was kind of like, okay, is he okay? Is he all right? And he kind of plays to the left and then kind of rides one or two blocks and then is patient through the hole. But then the second that he actually clears that first level, it's like nobody's catching him. Like he knows exactly where he needs to get, how he needs to fit. And you see his offensive line like working upfield. He knows exactly where to be behind it. Like there's a lot of really cool things that you watch that just look like it just happens and look like, oh, he just ran. He just was like, oh, there's just some space here. But no, he understands exactly where his guys are and he understands exactly where their guys are. And I promise you, he's shiftier, more athletic, and has better balance than pretty much anybody else on the field. So when you add those two things together, just his knowledge and just his understanding of mostly where my guys are, like where are the people that are protecting me, he can kind of take risks and he knows exactly where he needs to be defensive about. And that is the sign of an elite back. That's the reason why he rushes for over 120 every single game, is because he might have some runs like that get kind of whatever, and it's just ones and twos, but he turns ones and twos into fours and fives just based on his talent. And that's just a very, very special quality in a bag.
Jake, I'm not sure when you logged in, but I get these weird feelings 2 or 3 times a year, and I'm picking Tennessee to beat Georgia early in the week, which I never do. I have a weird feeling that Georgia's not that good and that Tennessee's defense is truly special. And I know it's Monday. I'm not asking you to make a prediction at this point, but how do you feel about the game?
Yeah, obviously I'm going to tell you Tennessee's going to win, right? And that's not just because obviously I'm a fan and I played there, but I will say if any time to do it would be now. And that is how I feel about the Georgia team, if that makes sense. If any time to beat them, it's right now. So I think, they coming off a rough week, right? They might be kind of frustrated, might be kind of, whatever. But if you can go out there and truly enforce your will, and our D-line just go out there and just actually dominate the line of scrimmage and just smother their run game, not give Beck time to get the ball off, like you're going to just have a lot of success the same exact way you have had in the past on defense. Offensively, establish a run game. It's going to be the same exact thing every single week. Establish a run game. Be consistent in your run game, and then be able to hit shots, which we did last week. We hit shots, and that's what puts up points, right? These are just the keys to the game for any offense, but specifically our offense, because our running back is so dynamic and so good, and because we got guys like Dante who can have 3 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown, and just like, you know what I'm saying? Like if you can trust those guys on the edge to get open and you can get the ball in their hands, then, then I truly, like, it's going to be hard to stop any offense, let alone this one.
Golden stuff, Jacob. We appreciate it again. Peak IV Hydration.
Oh yeah, go check them out. I'm right there with you. Go check the link out, man. Go see their patches. Read up on what it's about, man. Educate yourself and see if it's something that works for you. If it is, that's amazing. You can find that link in the chat and go give them a shout.
All right, I'm gonna leave it up to Caleb to drop you out of here. But we may just break into some sort of Banks and Jones commercial. Caleb, do you know how to do this? Jacob, we appreciate you, buddy.
Of course. Take care.
Jacob, have a good one.
Caleb can't do it. No, he did it. Look at him. We got a new software that we're working with.
Crashers in North Knoxville is one of the South's.
What are we doing? This day in Tennessee. This day in what?
Better. This will be fixed after today, guys. This was sprung on us right before the show started.
Yeah, they've changed the software, so pardon us for some mistakes. And I got Caleb's back on this one. This day in Tennessee sports history is, Caleb, what do we got?
On this day 24 years ago, Tennessee, Casey Clausen became the very first ever true freshman for Tennessee to throw 5 touchdown passes in a game. He did it as Tennessee beat Arkansas 63-20, where they jumped out to a 35-0 first quarter lead.
I remember that. Hit that thumbs up button if you love some Casey Clausen. Hit like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate that as well. Want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by the UPS Store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services locally owned and operated. And we want to support small businesses out there, which is why we partnered with Work Trucks, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Don't risk your future and business on the wrong piece of equipment. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. They'll find the perfect truck, outfit it, make sure it fits your needs to a T. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. That is Work Trucks. Coming up, Tennessee basketball. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Caleb is higher on the basketball balls than I am. But that's okay, because Caleb's right at least 10% of the time. So more after this. It'll be 4 downs talking hoops. That's right. It's a multiple type of segment feature. We can do all kinds of things with it. We can do hockey with it. But we're going to talk some hoops next. And well, I've got some concerns about this Tennessee basketball team. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back to the program. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I want to get your thoughts on Tennessee hoops. And if you want to super chat it, feel free to do that. As if you do that, it will go to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. He's just 5 months old, and his dad's promised not to throw that money away on parlays, which are a sucker's bet. But there you go. Hit like and subscribe. We appreciate you being a part of the program. And
So you say.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. I'm right.
I got to build one for tonight, Monday Night Football, by the way.
A parlay?
Yeah. The rules with parlays are this. Everybody says that's how they make most of their money, and that is true. But if you stay committed to the parlays, just hitting one outweighs all of your losses.
Let me just ask you this. Is Quincy even going to get a Christmas this year because of your gambling problem?
Actually, no.
Well, at his age, you really won't know. You could just wrap up bricks, and when they open, they'll be like, "Yeah."
I mean, actually, it's funny you say that. We actually started a 529 plan, and we're kind of one of those like Christmas presents for Quincy. Let's just put money into his 529 plan.
What's a 529 plan?
It's an investment. It's an investment plan for college. Think of like a 401k, but it's a 529 plan for like you can do for your kid's college fund. And so we're going to open one for him. And his Christmas present this year is going to be that, because what the heck is the point of getting him something that he's not even going to know? He doesn't know he's not going to know Santa Claus is coming down the chimney at 0.
Right. There's those ages when they're like 5 to 10 that you go. It used to be Toys R Us, and you would just drop like $200, and it was cool because they'd have a ton of stuff to open. Those are the cool ages. I don't know what you do now. I guess you go to Amazon. But whatever you do, I was in the I actually adhered to the GADS plan. Have you heard of that?
No, it's that plan.
It's called Get a Damn Scholarship. All right, 4 Downs Now is brought to you by Medicare Mystic. Well, they did it. I paid for the private school in high school so that they would get a scholarship, and they did that. 4 Downs right now brought to you by Medicare Mystic.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, I'm going to make it a poll question, and that is thoughts on Vols hoops. Better than last year. Not as good. Now, you've said from the beginning, before we get to the downs, that you think Tennessee can be as good as last year. I think that's crazy because Dalton Connect is a once-in-a-generational type of player. So, Caleb, tell me why you think Tennessee can be better than last year despite losing a guy that we compared to Bernard King.
I never compared him to Bernard King. I never went that far.
No. We said he was the best player since Bernard King.
That was still debatable, by the way. But okay.
Yeah, but it was a worthy conversations. Don't tell me it was absurd.
No. So I said this year's team could be bigger. They could be more versatile, and they could have more scoring options. So far, that hasn't fully proven itself out, but I think largely because Chaz Lanier is still getting settled into the role. By the way, he is this year's Dalton Connect in terms of go-to scorers.
Got a problem with Chaz Lanier, but I'm going to get to that.
The actual player profile of Darlington Dubar is the same as Dalton Connect, and he still hasn't gotten on the court yet for personal reasons. So we're not even seeing this team at full strength yet, not to mention JP Estrella's playing banged up. Igor Milicic Jr. is trying to fit his way into the offense. So while I don't know if there's anybody on this team as good as Dalton Connect, I think there are more options overall. There are players close to Dalton Connect. And on top of that, I think there are better fits for this team than what Santi Vescovi was for Tennessee last year. So there's not that liability. And I hate to say that, but I think that's a big part of it. And then the other big part, I think Felix Opera, the interior presence, is mentally tougher than Jonas Adu. And by the way, speaking of that, Arkansas lost to Baylor the other night, and Razorback fans are already questioning if they made the right move with John Calipari.
Okay, but I'm going to tell you, Adu is a better offensive player than they have in the post.
Wait, the Tennessee has?
Yes.
Igor Milicic Jr. and JP Estrella are both very solid fundamentally in the post. Igor
JP
just
Estrella's got a foot issue, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
All right, Coop, what do we do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
First down.
Coop here. First down.
All right, after the win over Louisville, just 2 games, but who is the Vols' go-to scorer right now?
Chaz Lanier. Clear-cut Chaz Lanier. He knows how to get into the lane. He knows how to manufacture points. Now, recently he's been red hot shooting the ball from 3. I'm not naive. I know that you never should get excited about something like that because there will be a game where they're not shooting the ball well from three. And the question is, can they still manufacture points? I think he proved in the exhibition against Indiana he can. So Chaz Lanier is their go-to scorer.
Here's my problem with Chaz Lanier. Has he proven to you that he can take it to the rack like Dalton Connect last year?
He did in the exhibition against Indiana.
Oh, it's an exhibition. But has he really proven it to you?
No, not consistently. But he's not going to have to either, even though he's going to be the go-to scorer.
Okay. Here's my problem. Around the key, he has a perfectly fine jump shot. When he's beyond the three-point line, I want you to watch this. He tends to push the ball instead of getting it up over his head in his release. And I think what you're going to see is defenders start to walk up on him and try to take away the three. So then it's more blockable. It's more defendable. Can he take it to the rack? Now, that may be something that Rick Barnes can fix, but I've got concerns just early over Chaz Lanier and his release. And I'm going to stay on that until, and I want you to watch it now and tell me if you agree or disagree, but I'm going to stay on that until I see it either get better or see him consistently make shots over those guys.
I don't think he has had to put it on the floor yet.
Agreed.
The point you bring up, actually, it's a great one because if you remember, that was the biggest thing Bruce Pearl worked with Chris Lofton on from his sophomore to his junior year was you got to put the ball on the floor. And I'll never forget, it was actually against Memphis. John Calipari had, I want to say it was Robert Dozier, just had him all on Chris Lofton. And Chris said, okay, I'll put the ball on the floor and go to the basket every time. And he did it. Now, unfortunately for Chris Lofton, he wasn't fast enough to be able to do that in the NBA. Now,
I will tell you, I know this because I shot the ball like that outside. It's because I didn't have good leg strength because I was in an accident when I was a kid. It's a long story. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm good. But I didn't have good leg strength. So I think he has
good leg strength. That's like crucial.
I mean, I think he has fine leg strength. So I think it's fixable, but he's going to have to be willing to change his shot during a season. And I don't think that's good. Now we're going to get to Darlington Dubar. I got another issue with Darlington Dubar after the people that I've talked to that have seen him practice a lot. He's got a really bad habit of dropping the ball to his left. And it's just a glitch. Maybe he can get over that. But even when he catches the ball in a catch and shoot, let's say to his right, he will then drop the ball to his left and then bring it up. That delays the release. So I'm just telling you early on, these are fixable things if they're willing to fix it. But I've got two concerns about Tennessee's theoretical scorers that are going to be able to fill in for Dalton Connect. So those are two fundamental issues I have. All right, what down is it, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Is the defense back to form after the Louisville win?
Yes, I think the defense is back to form. And I said they would be. The first game against Gardner-Webb, that was their biggest concerning sign was that the defense wasn't there. But look, whatever else faults Rick Barnes has usually comes on the offensive droughts end. The defense usually gets it together. I don't know of a Tennessee basketball team under Rick Barnes or a Texas team, someone could correct me, that followed him at Texas, that failed to make noise because their defense was subpar in March. I've never heard of one. Have you?
No, I'm not worried about Rick Barnes' defense, even if they were to give up 120 points in their next game. I would just say that's a bad game, a lot of turnovers, they'll be fine. That doesn't ever concern me. Nathaniel says, which would be my concern, he's not going to change his shot midseason. That's my concern. But you do have a month of really semi-meaningless basketball before you get to the SEC tournament or SEC schedule.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
How concerning are Zagai Ziegler's 11 turnovers? And I want to add in there, I just didn't think in the first half, and I've been called a Ziegler critic before, I just didn't think he had a lot of juice. And to me, he has to be the juice for this team. And especially in the first half, he had, 9 turnovers in the first half? And I didn't think had a lot of juice.
Here's why it's not concerning. First, let me say the broad picture of Zakai Ziegler. You ask about the go-to guy that manufactures points and goes to the rack. Zakai Ziegler can do that. And I don't know if you noticed, Dave, but while his turnovers allowed Louisville to keep it closer than they should have when they made it close in the second half, Zakai Ziegler was the one who took the ball and almost told everybody else to get out of the way. And That's a really good position to have a player like that for Tennessee. I'm not concerned about Zakai Ziegler's turnovers largely because, again, I think without Neubert and with JP Estrella banged up, which we're going to talk about, and with Igor Milicic still trying to work his way into this offensive scheme, I don't think Tennessee's offense, their half-court offense, is as free-flowing as they want it to be at this moment. I think once it is, that still would have been a bad game by Ziegler, don't get me wrong. Like, he still would have had too many turnovers, but it's one thing to have a bad game where you turn it over 5 times as opposed to 11 times, right? And I think it would have been closer to 5.
Yeah, and while I was very critical of Zakai Ziegler, I wasn't a great fan of his 2 years ago. Obviously, he won me over last year, and I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he is going to be just fine. So our poll question is this, if you want to take part. Thoughts on Vols hoops? Better than last year, not as good. We'll have the results, 4 downs, brought to you by Medicare Misty.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Answer to the poll question, 59% said Tennessee basketball will not be as good as last year, which was an Elite 8 run and winning the SEC regular season. Better than last year, 43%. What down, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. How much will this team improve with Neubert back and Estrella fully healthy?
Significantly so. Estrella is an offensive weapon, and they're not able to use him the way they want to play an inside-out game. And Darlington Neubert, again, is built like Dalton Connect. And he may have some certain issues, Dave, but what you're talking about is nothing that's not coachable. And what I said from the start with these type of players, the one-and-done for guys that are seniors, they're the most coachable people possible in college basketball. Is that fair to say? Like, they're going to do whatever Rick Barnes tells them to do. They're not going to push back on it the way a one-and-done freshman might.
You would think so. I hope that they came to be coached because the fundamentals in the shooting needs to be coached with Lanier and Neubert. And I think there can be some serious improvements made. I'm kind of like our poster earlier. I think it was Smoky Mountain Red, that I have trouble believing that that's going to happen during the season. It might, but we'll see. And it needs to happen really not during the season, but by January. I remind you that yes.
Sorry, Derek had a joke, so I just have to throw into it. They should probably hire Billy Napier. He would focus on these details we're talking about, Dave.
That's right. He would be great on that. Now, they might not all show up to the game, and they would lose consistently. But Hound Dogs of Knoxville champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com, HDKnoxville.com, and they've got a great selection of football and basketball clothing and memorabilia that you certainly want to check out. HDKnoxville.com. This day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb, is...
Oh, no, we already did this day.
We're doing stat of the day is... Sorry.
The stat of the day is one that you guys are going to love. We've been talking about Tennessee's streak of not giving up 20 points a game this year. They kept it up this week. And now, Dave, Tennessee is the only team in college football to have not surrendered 20 points in a game this year.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. And it's just, I don't think anybody who would have seen this coming at the beginning of the year with Tennessee.
Here's what I thought was going to happen in the preseason. I thought they were going to be special up front, and then people would start to chip away at them in the secondary. Not to the point of like 2 years ago when they were like 106th in the nation in passing defense, but I thought that they'd be average around the 50s. Now you've got Jermod McCoy, who's a lockdown corner, Ricky Gibson, who might be the second best corner on his team in the SEC. I'm not saying the second best corner overall, if that makes sense. And you've got Will Brooks, who's an absolute ball hawk. Reminds me of Jabril Wilson. So they really don't have a weakness. And I credit T-Lander too for they've got more depth than we thought. So I thought depth could be an issue. I thought the secondary could be an issue. I was absolutely wrong. In scoring defense, they're 12.6, just behind Texas, which is 12.1 per game.
And Texas has played a significantly easier schedule at this point.
Yep, very true.
So, yeah.
Very true. Portions of the program brought to you, and our stat of the day brought to you by Double D Piping for all your suppression needs.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
You remember when Tennessee's athletic department used to be the laughing stock of the SEC and beyond? Oh, they're giving away money in McDonald's bags. Oh, no, it's Chick-fil-A bags. So how did they give money away on Sunday? Because Chick-fil-A's closed, which I respect and hate at the same time because I was craving Chick-fil-A yesterday. But instead, I'll just go to Asia Cafe because Asia Cafe is fantastic. Asia Cafe has the long-guarded family secrets. And Asia Cafe, you can check them out at asiacafe.org. They also have the energy booster coffee that you can order at asiacafe.org. But let's turn to basketball and a couple of very embarrassing incidents. One is funny, one is troubling, and they both occur in the SEC. So, Caleb, can we pull up the audio in which the pilot declared an emergency because Bruce Pearl's Auburn basketball players were fighting to the point in which they had to land the plane? This just in case you didn't know, you should not get in a fight on a plane. If you want to fight a man or you're a woman and you want to fight a woman and you're on solid ground, yeah, perhaps they deserve a smack in the face. I was watching old Sean Connery clips, by the way. And he goes,
sometimes got to get a little snap, see?
Yeah, sometimes. Well, if you've done all you can, then yes, sometimes an open-handed smack. Barbara Walters was like, "You really think that?" We might play it at some point. You're going to get hate mail. Okay, so here we are. You're a pilot, and you probably like this gig because you get to take the basketball players from game to game. But here is the actual FAA control call of Auburn's basketball players creating a riot before we get to a stalker heading up Florida's basketball program. All right, what do we got?
Yes, sir. We have got an altercation on board. We knocked it a declared emergency and land. We got a bunch of basketball players fighting. The flight deck is secure. The threat level is contained for the moment. We just had police on the ground, and we had 2 players that got into physical altercation. Clothes were ripped, and one bloody player. And Center 2681, it's kind of crazy. Were we direct Montgomery?
So they had to redirect to Montgomery during the fight. The good news was the Auburn basketball team did arrive and were able to play basketball. But my goodness gracious. And I've told the story about Albert Hainsworth losing his stuff during a practice. But Philip Fulmer grabbed him by the shoulder pads and told him to stop. If you're an Auburn basketball fan, how concerned are you that this escalated to the point that they had to emergency land a plane that Bruce Pearl couldn't say, guys, stop, like right now? I mean, this is not a good look and not a good sign for Auburn basketball and their chemistry going forward.
I mean, was this before or after the Houston game? It was before, right?
Before.
Well, and then they went and beat Houston. In Houston, 74-69. I think Bruce Pearl he fosters such a chaotic culture that I think they feed off this.
Wow.
I mean,
So
I'm just saying.
So maybe fighting is a good thing for Auburn's basketball team. Is that what you're
With
telling
the culture
me?
that Bruce Pearl has fostered, yes, I do. I think maybe the fighting's a good thing. I think this is much less concerning than the other one we're about to talk about. Fighting on the Auburn team plane is hilarious, but Dave, you've heard stories. Michael Jordan all but sparked fights on the Bulls because of how he bullied players when they were on team planes coming back. I mean, he once told the didn't he tell like the team chef, like, don't give Horace Grant any dinner because he played like you know what tonight?
Okay, so all right. Now the Florida incident is much more serious. And let's look at this with a backdrop. If you can pull up the stalking allegations. The backdrop is this. Around about last Wednesday, the University of Florida's Scott Strickland, who was really good at setting up interviews, but not such a great athletic director. I keep bringing that up because that's a totally separate set of skills. So Scott Strickland sends out a letter that said, Billy's our guy. Billy's our guy. We love Billy Napier. He is our guy. We are with him till death do us part, essentially, which we know is not really true. He's going to get fired within the next few weeks, or they're going to save money for 1 year, and then he's going to get fired so they can spend more on NIL. That's what a mess that Florida is. I would actually argue that Florida is the worst athletic department in the SEC right now. And I don't even think it's close. All right, so this is what they have going on now. Their basketball coach, let's say, likes stalking people, and particularly females. And he doesn't just like doing it some, he likes doing it a lot. What can you share and tell us about that, Caleb?
So the details of this just get hilarious, but it's a Title IX, not hilarious, but it's like, it's just the modern day, what we're talking about. The formal Title IX complaint against Golden, obtained by The Alligator, which is a news outlet covering Florida, includes allegations of sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, and stalking. The complaint alleges that over a year, Todd Golden specifically aimed these behaviors towards Florida students. It include the claims regarding harassment could also include sexual exploitation, cited sending photos and videos of his genitalia while traveling for UF, unwanted sexual advances on Instagram, requesting sexual favors, and various occasions of stalking. There was allegedly more than one occasion in which Golden was taking photos of women walking or driving and sending those pictures to the subjects involved. On allegedly more than one occasion, he was engaging women on Instagram by liking photos, then waiting until they read the DM before unliking the photos to avoid suspicion. So multiple women have made this allegation now, and 2 students have corroborated the story. He's going to coach, by the way, tonight. They're going to keep him on coaching tonight. And this is what I think is a big deal. Guys, I'm not one of those people that you should be held out until the legal issue resolves itself. I don't believe that. I do believe you get your day. I think maybe there's a reasonable time frame. But I do think the schools sometimes have to exercise some discretion over what's likely true and what's not likely true. And you got multiple students corroborating this stuff on Todd Golden. So Dave, when you have students corroborating and you say it's probably more than 50% likely true, you got to suspend them until the thing fixes itself out, right?
Yes. And I typically do agree with you, but this is beyond creepy and beyond weird. And that he's, if you want to share some more particulars, you can. Now, you got to remember, in 2022, women's soccer coach Tony Amato was fired after a report accused of him of making inappropriate comments to players about their eating habits. I guess he was calling them fat shaming them, which I don't know, coaches can't do nowadays. So they probably should be able to, because you are an athlete. But this to me it's bad for everybody involved. It's bad for Scott Strickland. It's bad for Billy Napier because Napier is tied to Strickland. This to me is just, it could be a sign of the whole athletic department needing to be completely redone.
You know what this reminds me of?
I don't know, all kinds of perverts, I guess.
No, it reminds me of, do you remember when a group of women in 2016 filed a sexual assault lawsuit against the University of Tennessee that they had to settle out of court? And it's because there were just so many like random incidents Some of them may not have even been valid, including the AJ Johnson situation one, but they mentioned all these issues and they're like, it's a culture of this. That's what rehashed the Peyton Manning thing from 97 because that was in there. And I felt that was a little bit hazy how they did it, but the reason Tennessee made themselves look so much worse is all the coaches called like a joint press conference. It was the weirdest thing. All 16 of them called a joint press conference to address the issue of sexual assault. And of course, Butch Jones, the ultimate PR genius he is, comes in and says, this is hurting us on the recruiting trail. And I'm like, are you tone deaf? Like, yes.
That's not good.
Yes. So then Dave Hart had to come behind them and call his own press conference to clean up the mess that Butch Jones started because he said that this is hurting on the recruiting trail rather than trying to address the culture of Tennessee at the time. It was a total catastrophe. I'm sure it caused trouble with Tennessee. And by the way, this is going to cause trouble with Florida. The culture of Florida. Look, guys, the perception of a school's culture does kind of wreck you on the recruiting trail. Dave, let's be honest about this. Urban Meyer letting murderers and, sexual harassers and all those and domestic abusers just run loose with no consequences at the Florida football program. I still think that hurts them in recruiting to this day.
You've said that before. I'm not sure it still hurts them in recruiting. I think it hurt them a lot. And I was told by somebody that watched the Gator thing that it barely scratched the surface of what they did. That thing was like a puff piece.
It was a total puff piece. It was garbage. Netflix should be ashamed of themselves for it.
No, I agree. Here's what he said, too, Todd Golden, Florida's basketball coach. For the last month, I've actively participated in and respected the confidentiality of an ongoing school inquiry. My family and I appreciate the support we have received and remain confident the university will continue its efforts to finish its review promptly. Now, this came one day after the independent Florida Gator reported the university was investigating Golden for allegations of sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, stalking, and cyber stalking multiple women, including students. Why does this have to be reported for him to have a response? If you have a strong athletic director, you come out and you either suspend him or you address it publicly to get ahead of the news. That, to me, is one of the most troubling parts. Was Scott Strickland, Florida's athletic director, hoping this would just fly under the radar?
No, I think that's exactly what it was. I think that's totally what it was. By the way, Scott Strickland, Todd Golden was never a popular hire to begin with. Okay, I don't know if you know, Dave, but when he was at San Francisco, he was hired out of San Francisco after making the first round of the NCAA tournament and going 24-10 his third year there. How does that qualify you for the Florida job? That's just and funny that we were talking about the culture. Scott Strickland was an assistant on Bruce Pearl's staff at Auburn, so he's a Pearl protege of all things. But yeah, is Scott Strickland trying to get himself fired?
Well, what he's done now, if he is, he's not going to get his buyout.
Oh, he's just giving them calls to fire him, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's the same thing with Bruce Pearl. They had cause to fire Bruce Pearl because he broke NCAA rules, and I think that's going to be the case here. I think if that's his plan, which I wouldn't think it is, but if that is his plan, it's not going to work real well.
He and Todd Golden can both go to Destin, where Ed Orgeron is probably creeping on girls himself.
Yeah, and I'll agree with Smoky Mountain Red on this on a personal level. I still cannot understand what draws a person to want to live in Gainesville to begin with. Amen. Chattanooga Mortgage, congratulations. Your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chatmortgage.com. So let's start a firing pool. Who are you taking, Golden or Napier? Who gets fired first?
Man.
I don't think
I think there's a really good.
I don't think Golden makes it to the end of the year. The calendar year, not the basketball year.
But see, here's the thing. I'm not so sure Scott Strickland makes it to the end of the year. So I think because of that, there's a chance that Golden and Napier are fired the same day. I think they fire Scott Strickland and they hire another athletic director, and that athletic director comes in and says, all right, both these coaches are fired. Like, I think you could see, has that ever happened? A joint firing of your men's basketball and football head coach? Like, that would be epic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that, man, it's absolutely stunning to me that they're in that much of an issue at the University of Florida, who I've referred to as Nouveau Riche before, which means new rich, and they were because they were terrible in the 80s and before that in football. But still, you've established yourself enough now in the 90s, 2010s, kind of, that this is way too embarrassing for you to be a part of.
Oh, I agree. And there's too many good coaches out there, particularly in football. Look, Lane Kiffin and Deion Sanders are the hottest coaching commodities in football right now, Dave. And you don't think either of them would take the Florida job like yesterday if they were offered?
Well, I will say this. Based on, it's funny you bring up Lane. Based off somebody I talked to over the weekend, I'm not so sure he would take the Florida job now because it's such a fiasco.
Okay, what if you're Deion, though? Would you rather Colorado or would you rather – what's a better job, Colorado as is now or Florida even as a dumpster fire?
Florida's a dumpster fire.
Yeah, you'd still take the Florida job, right?
Yeah, because I think Deion Sanders would insulate his team and not get affected by all the BS. And I think he would also say, I have complete control, which some of us like complete control. Maybe this person right here. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up, we're going to have the SEC power rankings. And if Tennessee isn't number one, then I don't know. We might suspend Caleb, like Florida's basketball coach should be suspended. We'll talk about that.
They need to hire a good Christian man like you, Freeze, who doesn't have any of these things on his resume. Sorry.
Big ankle guy. Big ankle guy. He loves ankles. Yeah, that's how he judges football players and women, I've been told.
I believe that.
Yeah. Take your socks off, baby.
It sounds like something Rex Ryan would say too.
Boots, schmoots. I want to see some sandals. I want to see them ankles. All right. Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Hey, do me a favor. Let's see if we can get over 1,000 concurrent viewers, as apparently Elon Musk was working so hard in getting Donald Trump elected that the Twitter, the X, whatever the heck you call it, last week was a complete disaster, which meant that we didn't get to as many people as we'd like to do. So go ahead and click thumbs up, comment on the poll question, which Caleb will update us on here momentarily. I remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. You can also, just by being a member of Hooker's Corner, you can be registered for Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge. So we had 8,000 subscribers. We will give away a Garmin. And also, you can be eligible for our weekly gifts, which include t-shirts and books, Celebrate 98 book, which you can see right over my shoulder, and our monthly prizes, which are phenomenal. This month, how about this? Just $9.98. You get updated recruiting info, and you can be registered to win this John Henderson helmet, mini helmet autographed by the man, John Henderson. And this week, we've got a special series coming up on Hooker's Corner that will be about prospects that are highly considering Georgia and Tennessee in the upcoming 2026 class that'll be here before you know it. So this game could go a long ways in determining some upcoming decisions. I don't believe one game has a huge effect, but to get the Georgia monkey off your back, I think would have a major effect in recruiting. So please hit that like and subscribe button as we will go ahead and get to SEC power rankings as they are now. Start me off, Caleb. Give me to about 10 or so. And then if you don't have Tennessee number 1, I might just mute your mic.
No,
you might
won't.
just mute. Did you just
No,
mute
you
it
won't.
yourself?
No, you won't. You're not going to mute my mic. I'll bet you don't mute my mic.
Oh, yeah. All right, go ahead.
I'm too important. All right, so I'm sticking with Mississippi State at number 16. And the reason I am is after watching them this past weekend, Tennessee lost Nico Iamaleava. I never saw them play to honestly not win. They just played the whole second half not to lose and still won in a blowout. That's a bad football team.
Yeah, it's a really bad football team. They at one point they ran into each other going in motion. That was bad. Okay, keep going.
Yep. I got Kentucky down at number 15. I still think that Kentucky is just not a good football program either. They had a much needed bye, but that program is struggling. I got Auburn at number 14 and Florida down at number 13. That's my bottom tier after I thought Florida could put up a fight against Texas. Dave, you were right. They didn't. That was an absolute travesty.
It was. But Billy Napier is very detail oriented, so he has the full stat sheet in front of him right now. Who's next, Caleb?
Yes. All right, number 12 is Arkansas. I think that's a bit of a tier above because Arkansas still has a shot at a bowl game, and Tennessee should be Arkansas fans going forward. Right now, they are 5-4. They close out the year against Texas, Louisiana Tech, and Missouri. Louisiana Tech is a likely win. They could beat Missouri, so they could finish 7-5. So I think they're in a different tier. Vanderbilt's down at number 11. That loss to South Carolina was just the most, I should have seen that coming. That's Vanderbilt being and reminding you that they're Vanderbilt. And I've got Oklahoma at number 10. And despite having 2 losses, Missouri's at number 9. I mean, Missouri is the Indiana of the SEC because they literally don't play anybody. And they only have 2 losses and they can finish 10-2.
Did you see Eli acting all cocky after the game in his press conference?
He did. I didn't even see that.
That's one of the few guys that, if Missouri called and said, would you like to have Eli on the program? I'd be like, I'm good. The best team in the SEC that is not UT is Texas, Georgia, Alabama, or Texas A&M. You can vote right now on our YouTube poll question. So, Caleb, we get into the top 10. Who's 9?
So number 9 is... Well, Missouri was number 9. I got South Carolina. Number 8 is South Carolina. Dave, we got to have a real conversation about South Carolina now. I mean, they beat Oklahoma 35-9. They beat Texas A&M 44-20. They beat Vanderbilt 28-7. You can say what you want about Shane Beamer's team, but they are 6-3, and they're getting better by the week. And now they play Missouri this weekend.
Yep. I don't back dirty cheaters, so I refuse to agree with that because Shane Beamer's a dirty cheater. Who's next?
So you hate Tom Brady?
He wasn't aware of those balls. All right, who's next?
Okay. Or Nick Saban oversigning. Do you hate Nick Saban and all of his oversigning that he did back in the day when he forced players into prep school after lying to them and telling them to commit to Alabama?
I actually don't have a problem with that. The bigger problem I have with Nick Saban is, you know why he closed media access, right?
Why?
So he could hire all those analysts, and then they're not supposed to be on the field guys, and they would all run out there as soon as the media was told to leave after stretching. That was just an absolute. People talk about that he bought Trans Ams and stuff, and he may have for Derrick Henry, but I'm just telling you that was egregious to the point that every other program in the nation had to copy that, including Tennessee. I can remember leaving a Butch Jones practice and seeing a couple of the analysts that aren't supposed to be on field, air quotes, running out on field. And one of them said, "You didn't see me, Hook." It's like, okay, I didn't. All right.
So who are you rooting for this weekend? Shane Beamer or Eli Drinkwitz? If you hate them both so much.
Ta.
It's not going to happen, Dave. It's not 1990. I think you need to join the 21st century.
All right, who's next? I'm ready.
All right, next after that, now we get to the real teams. LSU has 3 losses, but I got them at number 7, but they are out of college football playoff contention, and Brian Kelly should really be on the hot seat. I'm sorry, it's his 3rd year. He's got too much talent down there. He keeps choking in big games.
He does, but you know why he's not on the hot seat?
Why?
His buyout is not like Jimbo Fisher or Lincoln Riley, but it is very, very substantial. I'm trying to get the number now. Okay, so his buyout would be, oh my goodness. His 10-year contract, which runs through 2031, guarantees him $95 million.
Jeez. So,
that's all that Caleb could come up with. Not stunning or unbelievable, just jeez Louise.
Yeah, he ain't going nowhere, man. You got me there.
All right. Who you got next?
All right. So after that, I have got now we got the 6 real contenders. Texas A&M's down at number 6. That loss to South Carolina is still working against them, but they are in complete control of their own destiny. If they went out and finished 10-2, they not only that would include an upset of Texas, and it would not only would it propel them into the college football playoff race, but it would also send them to Atlanta for the SEC title game.
All right,
I'm your Huckleberry.
Who's next?
Number 5 is Georgia. They are down to number 5. And honestly, I can make a case for Texas A&M above Georgia after the way they played on Saturday. That was horrible. That does not look like a good football team right now.
No, I think A&M's a better football team. I would have them above Georgia, but not strongly. I could go either way. Who's next?
Yep. All right. So number 4 is congratulations, Ole Miss. I mean, Dave, we thought Lane Kiffin was always going to be the guy that just hit pars and choked in the big games. And look at him coming around and doing what he did over the weekend against Georgia. I mean, give major credit where credit's due.
Well, that was a hammering too. Did you watch the beginning of that game? Jackson Dart got knocked out of the game, and so Georgia scored a quick touchdown. So it was 7-0, and you're thinking the Bulldogs are going to run off with it. And then Ole Miss just controlled the line of scrimmage on the following drive, answered the score, and pretty much dominated for the rest of the game. I mean, that game could have been 30-0.
Yeah, no, I agree. It easily could have. I mean, and you kept thinking like, all right, Georgia's going to get back in it here. Georgia's going to get back in it here. Not only did they never even give off a sign of getting back in it, Ole Miss was just piling it on.
My other September call, by the way, Jackson Dart. You remember me saying that? He's the best quarterback in the SEC right now.
Yep, you're right. He is. He should be in the Heisman race. So number 3 on my list is I moved Alabama up to number 3, and Dave, you can make a case for them being higher because I know they have 2 losses, and there's 2 other 1-loss teams on here that I have to be put in the top 2. But right now, I think there's a good argument Alabama would beat anybody they played on a neutral field from the SEC.
I still think they could get out coached by a lot of the coaches. I'm not a Kalen DeBoer guy from an X's and O's standpoint.
See, I don't think they get out coached. I think they get outplayed at quarterback more than they would get out coached.
That's fair that he doesn't have the quarterback that fits the system. You pointed that out, but he's such an incredible enough athlete that sometimes it doesn't matter. He just has great success no matter what's in front of him. Who's next, Caleb?
All right, now we go to the top two. And Dave can pull his hair out. He can scream. He can cry. He can do whatever he wants. But Tennessee's number two.
Like that is total bullshit.
No. Tennessee
right.
is the number one team in the SEC. They're one play away from being undefeated. You're going to have Texas at number one. I see
Texas
that.
is number one.
But what happened in Texas's loss?
They lost to Georgia?
Yes. And we don't think Georgia's very good. And that was at home. So how you don't have Tennessee number one to me is befuddling.
Do you want to play the common opponent game, Dave? Do you really want to play it?
Not deeply. I just want to play it as I don't want to go too deep into it because it gets silly after a while. But Tennessee should be number one.
What about what Texas just did to Florida versus what Tennessee did to Florida?
Oh, but see, that's way different to me.
How is that different? How is that different? How about this? What about what Texas did to Oklahoma versus what Tennessee did to Oklahoma? How about the fact that Texas also blew out Michigan on the road? Not a quality team this year, but they're better than NC State. I'm sorry. Right now, and I know everybody would favor Texas over Tennessee on a neutral field. And these are power rankings. What do power rankings have to factor in, Dave? Quarterback questions.
Oh,
we don't even know if Nico Iamaleava is healthy.
If you want to do that, that's fine. And if you want to go that route, that's fine. But you just tell me, what's the worst loss? Arkansas with Tennessee, or is the worst loss Georgia at home against Texas? As we tell you that TristarHatsCo.com, use the promo code HOOK for some great apparel.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TristarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without...
Okay, so would you take the worst loss over the best win, all things even? Because I would take the losses comparison over the best win comparison.
Well, if you point that out, Tennessee's got a way better win than Texas. Texas has nothing comparable to Alabama. Dave, I'm not going to deny this. If you're asking me to do a college football playoff ranking, Tennessee's better than Texas. That's not what a power ranking is. A power ranking is if they played on a neutral field right now, who do I think I want to put my money on based on what they're doing right now in this moment?
Okay, and if okay, well then let me ask you this: if
Iamaleava
is healthy 100%, that's not a question at all. Who would you put your money on?
I'm still leaning Texas at this moment because of the Florida game this last weekend.
Okay,
that's crazy.
All right.
I'm sorry, it just is.
I don't know what.
And also, you're comparing losses. You can't pretend that Arkansas by 1 possession on the road that's still a much worse loss than Georgia at home by 2 scores. It is. I mean, I'm sorry, it is.
Is it really? After what you've seen from Carson Beck over the past 5 weeks?
Yes, it's still after what I've seen from Arkansas too, and Sam Pittman. Yes. No, Arkansas is in every game. I give them credit for that. But actually, Dave, in most every game. But just recently, Dave, Arkansas played Ole Miss. I think that was their last outing, and they lost 63-31 at home.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
You had tackle issues at the time. You don't have those now. If those 2 teams played, Tennessee should be at a neutral site. Tennessee should be a 3 or 4 point favorite.
Yes, but I also think.
Do you agree with me on that?
Wait. No, I don't. I thought I was talking about the tackle issue. Sorry, in response to that. But I also think that Texas had quarterback controversy that's not there anymore. I think it's very clearly Quinn Ewers at this point.
Yeah, I don't ever think there was a controversy. I just think he was hurt. City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatandair.com. All right, Caleb Blastwick, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. We save the best for last as we look back over the college football weekend and what that means for the Vols, who, man, they need to beat Georgia or may need some help to make the college football playoff at 10-2, and that is befuddling to me. Do you want to begin with Miami? Played with fire and finally got burned against Georgia Tech. How does that change Miami in your mind as far as a college football playoff contender? And beyond that, if they get there, well, what do they have to do to get there?
Well,
first?
let's stick with some SEC ball first.
Okay. SEC.
We got it because we'll get to Miami. But let's starting with SEC because the story of the weekend was still Alabama. I mean, whatever you say, Dave, they didn't just beat LSU. They beat the brakes off them. They proved that they're not – all the panic of Kalen DeBoer, I think it's safe to say, needs to subside, and that should all be translated to Brian Kelly. Is that fair?
Yep.
And then most notably, Georgia beating Ole Miss. We talked about it, plunges the SEC into chaos. If all chalk happens the rest of the year in the SEC, then you're going to look at Texas finishing 7-1 in the SEC because they're going to be favored the rest of the way. But if chalk goes the rest of the way, you're going to see Tennessee finish 6-2 in the SEC, A&M 6-2 in the SEC, Georgia 6-2 in the SEC, Ole Miss 6-2 in the SEC, Alabama 6-2 in the SEC, and Missouri 6-2 in the SEC, and LSU 6-2 in the SEC. Now A&M and LSU would both be 9-3 overall, but they'd be 6-2 in the SEC play. So who goes to Atlanta? And by the way, Dave, in this college football playoff race, who gets the nod to go to Atlanta is a huge advantage now because there's going to be so many teams in the cluster.
That's true. Did you hear, though, Nick Saban say over the weekend that sometimes it's better not to go to Atlanta? I mean, he is so SEC through and through. I never imagined he would say that, but I think that gives you a good insight into coaches and their thoughts on playing that game.
Yes, you don't want to go to Atlanta in general, but here's the reason you have to want to go this year, Dave. It's such a cluster. You're not sure that you'll be one of the at-large picks if you don't go to Atlanta.
Okay, but you would have to go to Atlanta and win.
They don't hold it again. Yes. But the thing is, you don't want to be in a cluster of 7 at-large teams where there's only maybe 4 or 3 that are going to get a shot. So at this point, you hate to say it. I've been saying all year, guys, y'all know what I've been calling for. I've been saying Tennessee should lose to try to get the home playoff game. Who cares about going to Atlanta? They can't do that now. They just to be sure, just to be safe, they need to try to go win in Atlanta. Because honestly, they're not a guarantee to go to the playoff otherwise. And that's not just Tennessee. That's every SEC team at this point.
I agree with Kevin. He says Caleb thinking Texas is better than the real UT is why Caleb is losing money on his betting this year. Last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me. LASIK, no contact, no glasses. The rest of the college football slate in 15 seconds.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at ccteyes.com.
Talk to me, Caleb. Rest of the college football playoff rundown.
All right, moving over to the Big Ten. Everybody runs the table, including Indiana, by beating Michigan. Dave, when the year and the dust settles, Indiana plays Ohio State in 2 weeks. That will be the only team they have played with a winning record all year. If that's the case, do they have to go 12-0 to get to the college football playoff, or would you say 11-1 still gets them in because they're an 11-1 Big Ten team?
I'm going to say the same thing I said about a 10-2 team on face value. Now, I know a lot of things could shake that up, but a 10-2 team in the SEC should make the college football playoff. Face value, you know I don't like Indiana being a part of this conversation, but face value, 11-1 in the Big Ten should make it. Now, we may face a situation like Florida State last year, hurt quarterback, stumbled at the end of the season, all that. And we may face the same situation that you pointed out in the SEC where there's 800 10-2 teams. But just on face value, that's how I would answer it right now. I've got to see how things shake out.
Well, then on face value, the Big Ten is pretty much locked into 4 teams in the playoff now. Oregon's not losing again. Ohio State's not losing again. They're going to beat Michigan, and Penn State's not losing again. They're all going to finish 11-1. And Oregon's going to finish 12-0.
Of those teams, who do you feel, given their schedules as well, who do you feel like is most likely to stub their toe?
I mean, Ohio State, because they played Northwestern, Indiana, and then Michigan. But because I guess the rivalry with Ohio State and Michigan could make them stub their toe. But Penn State plays Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. They're winning out easily. Oregon is playing Wisconsin. Oregon does play at Wisconsin. That could be a stub their toe. But Dave, even if Oregon stubs their toe at Wisconsin, they're undefeated right now. So they can afford to lose a game. Honestly, if I'm Oregon, I'm resting my starters for that game. So, I think that these schools are locked in. The Big Ten, for all of its talk about non-conference play versus the SEC, there's a lot of bad teams at the lower level of the Big Ten this year, and teams are inflating. So I think maybe Ohio State just because they play Indiana and Michigan, but they're all going to be 11-1 or 12-0, and they're all going to get in. That's 4 Big Ten teams.
Has Washington at home. That's another whiteout. So no, they just beat Washington. Excuse me. Penn State has at Purdue, at Minnesota, Maryland.
Oh my gosh, I'm so scared.
Yeah, but I just feel like James Franklin could slip up and lose one of those. By the way, the Maryland game is Scout Day, which that means keep your kids, your young boy, male children away from that game. All right, what do you got next?
You should keep your young children away from Penn State, period, if you know their history. Okay, sorry.
It's Maryland Scout Day too, so no matter where you hold that game, you're in trouble if you got an adolescent child.
That is true. All right, so going to move to the ACC. You're right. Miami lost over the weekend. Pitt also was upset by Virginia. That closes the door on 2 teams from the ACC making the college football playoff. The ACC champion is going. Luckily for Miami, they're still probably going to play for the ACC title. But Dave, what it really does is it opens the door for Clemson, because I think Clemson could easily win the ACC title, and they still are in line to actually go to the title game. So Clemson's not dead yet after losing to Louisville.
They're not, and I get the feeling that there'll be one last hurrah by Dabo Swinney. I'm not sure if it's this year or not, but I think there'll be one last hurrah. Who's up next, Caleb?
All righty. Big 12 college football playoff standings get wrecked too. They're not getting multiple teams in, probably because Iowa State lost to unranked Kansas. Kansas State's upset last week, puts them at 2 losses, so they both have 2 losses. BYU survives. They're still undefeated, but they're the only one. But I want to tie this to another takeaway real quick, because the other team that could threaten is Colorado. Colorado is becoming the story of college football, guys. I mean, Deion Sanders is far and away coach of the year. I really don't think it's close.
Yeah, and we've got polled a bunch of Heisman voters, and we'll have that coming out, and where Dylan Samson stands later in the day. And there's a lot of people that right now would vote for Travis Hunter. And I laughed at you when you said that a month ago, but I stand corrected. All right, who's next, Caleb?
Next 2 more. Notre Dame stays safe in their playoff race by blowing out Florida State after Dave thought that would be the upset of the century. But it's not over yet. Notre Dame is still stealing a spot right now, but they do have to play Army, which is a top 25 team, and they could slip up because Army's still undefeated. But that leads to my final takeaway, which is that while Army's undefeated, they still have to play Notre Dame, and Boise State with 1 loss is still the favorite of the group of 5 teams. But are you ready for a hilarious, catastrophic error, Dave?
I'm ready.
Washington State and Oregon State refused to join the Mountain West outright. You know that, right? Because they wanted to see themselves as above that, as a borderline Power 5 team. So they're in this Power 2 conference in the Pac-10. The committee is not going to recognize the Pac-12 champion between whoever wins between Washington State and Oregon State. They're not going to recognize a conference champion. The automatic bids for the group of 5 are only reserved for the top conference champions. So Washington State is probably significantly better than Boise State, but because they chose not to join the Mountain West Conference, they're not going to be able to be the group of 5 team to get to the college football playoff. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What would you think of the idea that both teams that make the SEC championship game are guaranteed to make the college football playoff?
I don't think it's a guarantee because
well, no, I'm just asking you what you would think of that rule. Because with the way it stands now, there's not a 3-loss LSU team that can slip in because of the SEC when they had the West and the East.
No, they can slip in. LSU can because
no. You're missing my point. Okay. You're taking the top 2 teams in the SEC, right? Mm-hmm. Theoretically.
Yep. Theoretically.
Okay. So when they were in the East and the West, like when LSU got in last year, they were probably the 4th or 5th best team in the SEC.
Right.
So I mean, what would you think now the way they're doing it of the top, the two teams that make the SEC tournament, they go to the college football playoff. They're locks.
I don't think they could do that because the SEC has a formula that determines the top two teams that is a stupid formula that contradicts who would actually be the top two teams in the SEC with the college football playoff rankings. And I think the SEC should very seriously look at altering this formula. I told you guys this was going to happen, by the way, with the way Greg Sankey set this up. It was stupid. This is why they should have divisions, by the way. And you can't adequately choose the top two teams in a conference when you have 16 teams playing an 8-game schedule against each other.
Yep. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Wherever you're listening, please leave us a review. Click the like button. You can find us on any of your podcast networks or live right here on YouTube at 10 a.m. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Other attorneys say though, pardon me, go to trial. They won't. Banksandjones.com. Don't settle for less. Banksandjones.com. Play to win.